Councillor Steve, if you could please pick up the chair. What I'll do is I'll just make sure that someone is attending to Councillor Hemsley.
Brilliant. Thank you. Right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Cabinet meeting on the 15th of June. First of all, do I have any apologies for absence? I think Councillor Rozelle is an apology, but that's it otherwise.
Yes, Councillor Rozelle. Yeah.
Brilliant. Item number 2, announcements from the chairman and or head of the paid service. No. Great. Item number 3, do we have any declarations of interest? And I'm looking for hands up. Oh, sorry, I appear to be echoing now and I'm not quite sure how to deal with that. So there are no items, no declarations of interest. Item number 4, record of decisions, to confirm the record of decisions made at the meeting of the Cabinet held on the 18th of May 2021. I'm happy to propose those. Do I have a seconder? Thank you ever so much, Councillor Payne. And I can just see that Councillor Hemsley is joining, so I'll ask for all votes in favour. Thank you very much. And obviously there are no votes against. Councillor Hemsley, are you happy for me to hand over to you, or do you want me to do item 5? I'll do item 5 as I think you're just connecting. Have we had any items raised by scrutiny?
No, Chair, we haven't.
No, and then I'm just going to see if Councillor Hemsley is literally back in the room.
I am in the room, but I don't have a camera. It says it cannot start my camera. Please use a different one, and I don't have a different one. So are you happy that I chair the meeting without visibility? Would you rather Lucy continues, as you can see her lovely face?
I'm very happy to hand over to you, Oliver.
Can I? Yep. Is that all right, Phil?
Yeah, that's.
Yes, please, Councillor Hemsley.
Fantastic. Okay, so we've done item 5, items raised by scrutiny. So we're now on to item 6, which is building control contract and change of service provider. And it's actually got my name beside it. I understand, though, that Penny is going to present the paper, if that's all right. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Leader. So this report is coming to Cabinet to seek approval for the Council to appoint Blaby District Council as to provide our building control services under a shared service arrangement for initially a 3-year period. I'll go on to explain some context around that recommendation. The proposal, if agreed, would result in an increase in terms of pressure on the service, cost of the service, of 52,700. So approval is also being sought from Cabinet to increase the budget for the building control service. So Rutland County Council building control service has been provided for a number of years by two building control surveyors employed through a company called L. Jones Surveying Limited. That contractual arrangement has been in place for some time and was due to end at the end of March. We agreed to extend the contract by 3 months in order to be able to put in place alternative arrangements. Over the last 12 months, the service has been looking at a range of different alternative options for providing this service. And they've ranged from retaining the current arrangement, insourcing the building control service, or looking to develop a shared service arrangement with other local authorities. For a number of reasons, the Blaby opportunity seems to be the most appropriate one for us to pursue. There are a couple of issues that it's important for Cabinet to be aware of. So, as I said, we have 2 surveyors that support the delivery of the building control service at the moment through the company arrangement. That gives us very limited resilience in terms of service, and particularly for out of hours. And in fact, last year we agreed an arrangement with Blaby Council to provide some backup support if needed on an out of hours basis. So we've had them in the wings now for a year in terms of providing a bit of resilience for for the Building Control Service. Again, as you're aware, we have, or maybe aware, we have a statutory duty for particularly around dangerous structures where we have to mobilise out of hours. In terms of also in the wake of Grenfell, the government has made some significant changes to building control requirements, and going forwards there will be a number of changes that mean that we need to make sure that we've got suitably qualified staff and managers to oversee the delivery of the service. And that is something that would be very difficult for us as Rutland County Council to sustain on our own. So the best option, as we see it, is to pursue a shared service arrangement with another local authority. We have, as the report talks about, spoken to other neighbouring authorities about their ability to work with us to deliver this service. And for a number of reasons, Blaby is certainly the most appropriate arrangement, and willing and able to sort of work with us. The other benefit that the arrangement with Blaby brings is that they already work with 4 other local authorities in Leicestershire, so that there is resilience in terms of the service and an opportunity further down the line to extend that partnership arrangement. The finances work on the basis that we would secure a shared element of income generated through the delivery of the service. The issue and the reason for the pressure is that will be lower than we currently have through our existing arrangement. So as the report outlines at section 6, based on current budget position, we would be looking at an additional pressure of 52,700. However, again, as the report says, that brings with it considerable resilience and ultimately a strong platform to be able to potentially build the market through the partnership and the service that we would have with Blaby. We're proposing a 3-year service level agreement, formal service level agreement that would be procured through Welland procurement, and that would give us a 12-month review period. So we have the opportunity annually to review and potentially break that arrangement if it wasn't working for us. So I'll leave it there, Chair, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from my fellow colleagues? Karen, you have your hand up.
Just Penny, obviously not very happy about the additional budgetary pressure of 52,700. Why was it not foreseen and included in the original budget?
As I say, we've been working through various options. So because we've been exploring what other arrangements might look like with other partners, it wasn't possible to quantify it until the back end of last year. And in fact, we only got that final figure earlier in this year, so after the budget had been set.
Anyone else want to make a comment? I have a question, I think probably for you, Penny, that if there was more building control work managed through this provision, then the budget pressure would reduce. Is that how I'm reading it? So yes. On that basis, are we going to be promoting the service in a more robust way when people put in planning applications, for instance, that we've actually got a good in-house service that they can dial into and use?
Yeah, so the opportunity that Blaby affords us is that we do have the potential, I think, with a bigger team around us to look to potentially build market share within Rutland. I think it's fair to say that the service to date, because of the capacity we've got within it, is relatively proactive, although it's got reasonable market share. And there's an opportunity with the Blaby arrangement to ultimately look at developing a partnership model which could see us share a greater degree of income. So that is certainly what we have in mind as we would look to enter into this agreement.
Fantastic, because obviously with the additional training that people are going to require for building inspections and things, actually probably will reduce some of the teams that are available. So there's a potential there to be able to, pick up a little bit more momentum. So if we can target that as part of things. Mark, you have your hand up.
Yeah, it was just to say I've been in discussions with a range of chief execs, particularly over in Leicestershire, for district councils who all have been struggling with their building control services over time. So when we say Blaby, it's actually a range of districts all coming together under the Blaby banner and with Blaby leading. I think as far as they're concerned, just like us, there are issues with the kind of cheaper options that people have been exploring in the past. Certainly, we don't have the resilience in the arrangements that we do have, and I'm quite concerned about those historic arrangements. So actually, we're not a single authority getting in to an arrangement with Blaby. There's a range of districts who all feel that this is a better option, particularly about what it affords us to the future. Because actually, if you take the entire market across those districts, suddenly you have a service that actually can expand and grow and meet a market growth within Rutland as well.
Thank you for that. Any more comments or questions before we go to the vote on this? No, thank you. Do you want to take a roll call, Joe?
Do you need somebody to propose?
Oh, sorry. I'm happy to propose this. Can I have a seconder? Lucy, thank you very much. Thank you for correcting me there, Penny.
Sorry, Councillor Henderson, can I just interrupt? Just to remind you, it is the portfolio holder making the decision. So this is just a show of hands to show general agreement.
Fantastic. So if we all show our hand, and my hand is up for those that can't see it.
Okay.
Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We now move on to item 7, which is the Highways Capital Programme second allocation 2021-2022, and that's over to Councillor Stevenson.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Chair. You may recall in March of this year, you kindly supported the proposal for the first allocation of 1 million. This is covering the second tranche, bringing us to this paper covers 1,487,000, and therefore I will be asking for your support to recommend it to full council for final approval. You will be pleased to note that this is including obviously our pothole funding, but also 265,000 incentive funding, which is the maximum you can receive. So for a third year in a row, we have received band 3, the highest status. So I think that's very encouraging and supports much of what I'm about to say. Obviously, you've read the papers very broadly. This will be covering drainage, bridges, street lighting, structural testing, carriageway and footway schemes. The detail of those are included in Appendix A. I will draw your attention to 3.1, which is to say, yes, the team have identified the schemes and the works that are intended to be carried out with this money. However, should something materialise that needs immediate emergency action, obviously that may result in a slight alteration to the list. That is, as I said, covered in 3.1. I think, colleagues, the key question is, are we spending the money on the right things at the right time? A short answer is yes, and I say that with a huge amount of confidence. The longer answer lies in Appendix B, which is, I hope, reassuring colleagues that all the schemes, the items that have been identified have been done so using a very robust evidence base with a variety of inspection regimes. And it should be noted, those build up, that information builds up year on year, and it absolutely enables us to deliver on our statutory functions as a highways authority, prevention being better than cure. And if you would like further evidence than the band 3 grading as to, is this working, is it the right approach? Yes, I think our performance outturns have demonstrated that. A roads have gone up from 74% being graded as good to 82%. B roads have gone up from 72% being graded as good to 84%. So I, with great confidence, say this outlines the right things to do at the right time for the overall aim of a safe highways network for our residents to enjoy. I'm very happy to take questions, and I would ask for your support to recommend this to Council for full approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions or comments, please? I'm not seeing any hands up. So are we happy to just indicate to the portfolio holder that we're in support of this, please? So if so, could you please all raise your hand? My hand is raised. Thank you very much. We now move on to item 8, which is revenue and capital outturn report, and that's over to Councillor Payne, please.
Thank you, Chair. In the year of the outturn we just reviewed, we were dealing with a pandemic all year in an extraordinary reactive environment. The government were making unforeseen and unannounced demands on RCC that had to be met, pushing other tasks to one side, making forward planning and budgeting extremely difficult and complex. RCC delivered business as usual and met the pandemic demand locally and to the government with very little increase in resourcing. The many grants received were used wisely, and we ended up in a good position. Sensible management of business as usual and the pandemic over the year has to be absolutely commended against these difficult circumstances. We're declaring a 2.2 million surplus, which I think is a much more positive story than declaring a negative situation. But much of this money is allocated. It assumes some transfers to reserves for ongoing projects and unspent grants that we need this year, and I am fully supportive of what is being proposed. However, we are still facing some known pressures that have been incorporated into the medium-term financial plan and a list of unknown financial pressures that are as yet unquantified and could put us at risk. The impact of the outturn on the MTFP means that we are still drawing on reserves, but the Council runs out of reserves a year later in 2026-27 rather than 2024-25 as originally predicted in the budget setting in February this year. We are not alone in the situation we're in. I'd like to draw your attention to a Parliamentary Select Committee paper published by the Committee of Public Accounts entitled COVID-19 Local Government Finance Paper. It is critical of the role at MHCLG and its negative impact on the local authority financial stability across the board. It makes 7 relevant conclusions and recommendations that you can read, but again illustrates the difficult environment local authorities are currently operating under. To reiterate, I consider we are still at risk and need to continue to be prudent and make cost savings to reduce resilience on our reserves as soon as we possibly can. Closing the gap on the reserves will also be considered against the outcome of the future Rutland conversation and the formation of a new corporate plan later this year. That said, I still remain greatly concerned about the future, both in terms of uncertainties, what reforms might bring, and also our capacity to deliver on long-term savings. We now absolutely need to focus on identified savings and delivering them to replenish our reserves and strongly manage through these uncertain and very risky times. I ask you please to support the recommendations made in the paper. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions? I see Councillor Walters, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. An interesting question arose when this paper was scrutinised last week. The question was phrased around, are our reserves too high? I'm not saying I support that view. I'm merely asking for confirmation that you think perhaps that the reserves are not too high. And do you agree with me that nothing in this outturn changes the need to make savings?
For me, absolutely nothing in this outturn changes the need to make savings. We are still using reserves. Most of the money that went into the reserves is earmarked, And I'd like the Section 151 officer just to come in behind that, please.
Yes, I think when the question was posed the other night, I explained that our reserves are above the average of other unitary councils, but I believe that in the situation we're in, whereby our medium-term financial plan suggests for the next 3 to 4 years, we are going to be relying on reserves to the tune of £2 million plus, unless, of course, we make substantial savings. Then I believe, and I'm grateful for the fact that we have the reserves at the level we are. I think the other issue that was raised at the scrutiny panel was around the recognition that there's parts of the council that do require some injection of resource so we can address some key issues and priorities. And I think, again, our reserve position does allow us to do that, albeit on a short-term basis. So I certainly don't sit here and think that our reserve levels are too high. I'm grateful for the fact that we have them, given the 4 actions we have.
Thank you for that. I see Councillor Wilby, you have your hand up.
Thanks, Chair. I'm an operator, not a bean counter, but I want to publicly state how hard all our bean counters have been working, and the whole of the financial team throughout this pandemic has worked itself into the ground, and it's been very obvious on our Zoom calls from looking at the folks that exactly how much stress they have been under to try and make all the columns add up and work in the right direction. I think you've done a magnificent job, and I'm really pleased that we have that team working for us at Rutland.
Thank you very much for that comment. Lucy, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, echoing what Councillor Wilby said, times are really, really challenging in many, many ways. We are incredibly lucky in Rutland to have such an excellent team, really clear, easy to read report, which I think says it all. And I'm very happy, Councillor Payne, to acknowledge, support the position that you've outlined. And thank you, Mr. Della Rocca, for brilliance at the financial helm. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's well echoed from everybody here. Any other comments? I don't see any other hands up at this moment. So can we please indicate to the portfolio holder that we are happy to support this? My hand is raised. Thank you. We now have the option to exclude the press and the public before we go on to item 10. So do we need me to read it all out, Phil?
Chair, if I may, in introducing this paper, I would personally not be referring to anything in the exempt papers, and I would ask that we only move into exempt if people feel it necessary to refer to those papers.
I'm content with that. Is everyone else content with that? Excellent. So I will hand straight over to Councillor Walters for the Catmus Sports contract update, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this paper relates to the provision of sports and leisure at the Catmus site in Oakham in an agreement between 3 parties: Catmus College as the landlords, Rutland County Council as tenants, and Stevenage Leisure as the subtenants from RCC and leisure operators. This arrangement covers the new sports hall, the old original sports hall from the original Vale of Catmus College, the gym and studio, swimming pool, and outside sports areas. It's true to say that all leisure providers have suffered as a result of COVID, and no less so Stevenage Leisure, and they have made a request for financial support for the next year. The details of this are shown in the papers, and I'll come to them in the decision recommendations. It's important to note that this is a short-term financial support, and we are not at this stage committing to any further support in the long term. It is also conditional on our partner accepting the terms, which will include them giving us open access to their financial books and the council having the right to give 3 months' notice to terminate the agreement. It should also be noted and on record that the support does not extend to including the refurbishment of the swimming pool, which will remain closed. We will, of course, be looking for other options for enabling our residents to access swimming, particularly for learning. So the recommendations that I'm seeking support for are partly that we accept an offer of a grant from the National Leisure Recovery Fund, of which 57,707 would be passed to Stevenage Leisure, but also that we support them to the sum of £43,000 to enable them to continue functioning for another year. And also that we agree that the Strategic Director for Places and Resources, in consultation with myself as portfolio holder for leisure, can agree capital expenditure on the maintenance works that are required in line with our lease obligations. I should say that in looking at that final recommendation, we will of course act in good faith, but I can absolutely assure you we will also act with all due diligence. So I would look for support for those recommendations, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Lucy, were you putting your hand up there or just nodding?
Oh, I was helpfully volunteering to second, but then I realised I hadn't been. Yes, sorry, I was actually endeavouring to be helpful and time efficient, Chair, but have failed miserably, clearly.
I take it that Councillor Walters has proposed it, Councillor Stevenson has seconded it, so that's very useful. Thank you. Any questions? I'm not seeing any hands up. I would just like to make a general comment on funding availability. I'm part of the leaders group around the country, and some of the figures that people are dishing out to their leisure facilities are eye-watering. I think we are very lucky with what's being asked for here, and we should remember that. They are under pressure, but they have worked really hard to get a good service for us. And so it's the least we can do to keep our options open for the future. Any other comments or questions? No? So can we, oh, Lucy.
Yeah, I was just actually going to underscore what Councillor Walters has said, the due diligence, meticulous work that is happening with this and has happened with this. I know it's going to be fairly difficult, choppy waters, Councillor Walters, but I'm very confident in your capabilities and the team around you.
Thank you very much. So I'm now just left with us raising our hands if we're in agreement to support Councillor Walters with this decision. So if we may raise our hands. Yeah, my hand is raised as well, Joe. Thank you. I believe that we have no items of urgent business. So it just comes to the end of the meeting at 10:31. I close Cabinet. Thank you.